What if Bitcoin mining could actually help power the clean energy future? It's not just a theory, it's already happening. Today on Token for Your Thoughts, we're joined by Paul Giordano, VP of Digital Asset Management at Mara. Mara is one of the largest Bitcoin miners in the world. They're not just plugging into the grid though, they're building data centers powered by flare gas, landfill methane, and remote renewables, and rethinking what large-scale Bitcoin mining can actually do for the energy sector. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Nice to see you, Lindsey.
I'm really looking forward to our conversation today and hearing more about what Mara is doing. But first, let's start with you, Paul. What were you doing before you got into crypto? And does it surprise you that you ended up here?
Does it surprise me? I started out my career in traditional finance, and at that time there wasn't even a thought that crypto would exist.
Right.
So I started off being a bond trader at Merrill Lynch in New York, and moved over into the hedge fund space after about 10 years or so of trading bonds. And I managed a hedge fund for a long time, doing convertible bond arbitrage. And then in about 2016, a few friends from the TradFi world invited me to a meeting in San Francisco of some just local business people who are interested in this new technology called crypto and Bitcoin in particular.
Okay.
And I went to the meeting just to listen, and they just said they were going to call themselves the Silicon Valley Blockchain Society, and there were 7 people there, and we're going to have monthly meetings. And I thought, oh, this seems pretty interesting. And the next week, the first time I went, there were 7 people there. Then there were 15 people there. The next month, and the month after that, there were 30 people. And I said, something is happening here that's interesting.
Ah.
So I continued sort of to try to learn as much as I could about the crypto space and about Bitcoin and Ethereum, and really thought that it was something that could, better the world and be a very exciting technology for the future. So I decided to pivot my career towards the crypto space and got involved with a few of the individuals that I met there, and started a token origination platform business, which we managed for a couple of years, trying to raise growth capital for non-listed international companies. And the regulatory environment just was not ready for that kind of a business. So I pivoted that into launching a crypto hedge fund and
Ah.
and managed that until I got the opportunity to join Mara, who at the time, I think I was the 40th employee, and we've about 170 now, not even 2 years later. The
At
growth has
Mara.
been at Mara. So the
Oh,
growth has
wow.
really been incredible. And they had nobody managing their treasury. They had nobody managing, fully committed to managing the trading operation. And that's what I fit into. And we've grown considerably. At the time when I joined, we had about 10,000 Bitcoin in our treasury. And now we are close to 47,000 Bitcoin in total.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so what led you to transition from the crypto hedge fund into Mara? What was the spark that made you say yes to the role?
Yeah, well, I really felt that Bitcoin could sort of bring um, an opportunity to change poverty in the developing world by bringing the access to capital and the way to preserve capital to people who really were unbanked.
Hmm.
I think they estimate now about 3 billion people still are unbanked in the world. And when there's no banks, you can't preserve capital, you can't store capital, you can't grow it, you can't find avenues to invest in businesses and grow businesses. And I thought Bitcoin was something that really solved a lot of those problems. It's not issued by a country. It can't be diluted by the activities of politicians or corporations. And it's really the only asset that doesn't increase in supply as the value rises. Every other
Hmm.
asset that I could think of increases in supply as the value rises, except for Bitcoin. And that that way of removing the inflationary aspect of an investment, I thought was really incredibly unique, and I wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, I think the impact in terms of poverty and providing access to the banking to the unbanked is a huge aspect of crypto where there can be a big impact. And as you said, the fact that you can't create more of it, which isn't true for any other asset, which I don't think is talked about enough. It's like when you think about it, literally like real estate, you can build more houses, stocks, you can make more of them, gold, you can find more. Like literally, there will only ever be a limited
Sure,
supply of Bitcoin.
when countries' bonds rally, they issue more bonds. When companies' stock rally, they issue more stock. And Bitcoin is going to be 21 million of them, and that's it. There will never be any more. And that is a really unique thing. It really makes it pure money rather than a variable floating type of an instrument.
Hmm. Absolutely. And what does your role as VP involve?
So what I do at Marathon is I manage all of our custodial relationships. So when we mine Bitcoin, we take it into an account at a qualified custodian, which is um, normally a large institution that cold stores the Bitcoin for us.
Hmm.
And it's easily auditable by a third party if needed. And being a public company, we have very strict SEC regulations of our inventory being audited, and by having all of our Bitcoin at an institution, it's easy for an audit firm to look at our books and records.
Hmm.
Additionally, whenever we're in the market buying Bitcoin or hedging or putting on option strategies, that's what I'm something that I manage as well. So kind of anything that's TradFi related in the Bitcoin space at our company, I have a
Okay.
piece of.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so getting into Mara and the space, there's been a lot of debate around Bitcoin's energy use. What do you think people understood more about it?
Well, I think people should understand the variable ability of Bitcoin miners to turn their machines on and off. so, so if you think about a grid, it's a plumbing system where there's a certain amount of electricity flowing through at any one time, but the demand isn't always fixed.
Hmm.
So there are times, middle of the night, middle of the afternoon, when weather isn't hot or cold, when the demand of the energy grid is less. And then there are times when it's very cold out, or it's those peak hours between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. when the grid is people are home, they're using their electricity. That's where the demand is high. But there's a lot of variability in that. And Bitcoin
Hmm.
mining fits and stabilizes that grid by being able to turn on and off our machines at a moment's notice. So the utilities love it. The grid operators love it because we would always be there as the buyer of electricity when the demand is low. And we will never stuff the grid or compete with homes during times when demand is high. So I think that's something that's somewhat missed when you think about energy usage, sort of in a traditional sense by pulling from the
Hmm.
grid. But additionally, when you're talking about renewable energy, like solar, for example, solar uh, has that same demand function where the highest demand on a solar array is in the morning and in the evenings, but the panels are pulling electricity, are creating electricity by pulling solar during the day, the middle of the day.
Hmm.
So Bitcoin can sit and consume that energy during the middle of the day, and when it's needed most by the people, it can be, we can turn off and we can allow the homes to take that electricity. So that helps with all kinds of renewables like wind farms and flare gas, things that uh, are very variable. We can help stabilize that demand, and the grids are built for the maximum amount of need. It's kind of like an airplane. There's a certain number of seats, and airlines don't like flying an empty seat to anywhere, so they'll will sell those empty seats very, very late in the flight life to anybody to fill those seats and increase revenue. And that's kind of the way Bitcoin fits into the energy grid.
Hmm. I guess that's the thing with sun and wind. It's nature and it does its thing. You can't control it. So there are times when there's more and less energy, and that affects profitability, right? If you're producing all this energy, but then there isn't a demand, you have that surplus. And so that can affect whether renewable energy is an attractive business or not, right? So Bitcoin coming in and solving these issues, what is the impact of that? Do you see existing renewable energy operations expanding, or do you see more of them popping up, more people investing in it with these issues being solved?
Yeah, we're seeing more and more interest in us being a load stabilizing force for all types of energy. For example, we have a wind farm in North Dakota that you know there's no connection to the grid. So the wind, it's very windy there, but it's not very highly populated, so there's not a lot of demand. But our computers don't mind being in cold weather, and they operate fine there. So we can help that grid, be built out by being an early customer. One of the things that we're doing in Africa is we are um, partnering with local governments to deploy mining equipment by hydro dams that are being built. Whereas the dam is built, but the transmission lines to the homes of the people have not been built yet, and there's not enough
Uh,
money for that. So we can be a customer. We can pay for the early energy by deploying right next to the hydro generator, and they can use that capital to build out their transmission lines to bring the electricity to the people's homes.
nice. Yeah, it's really interesting looking at patterns with the energy use. There was this story in the UK how the energy grid needs to be prepared for. I think they were saying it was like a popular TV show, like during the ad, because everyone goes and makes tea. They all put the kettle on, so there's this huge surge of energy, and like they need to be prepared for it so that like there isn't this outage. But it's just something that came to my mind as we were talking about supply and demand. So I wonder what
Mm.
other interesting patterns there are that grids need to be prepared for and get that extra or conserve it. But that's incredible that Bitcoin mining is playing a role in actually being not only being sustainable, but helping build out parts of the infrastructure that benefit, locals. Talking about the perception, there have been stories that talk about how, Bitcoin mining, energy is comparable to countries like Argentina and the Netherlands. Lots of stories about that and the impact on the environment. On the flip side, there have been studies. There was a report by Galaxy Digital that found that, in fact, the Bitcoin network uses less than half the energy of the traditional banking sector or the gold industry. Why do you think that Bitcoin mining has been spotlighted in this way, in a way that other industries haven't?
Well, Bitcoin itself is competing with traditional finance
Hmm.
in a lot of different ways. So if we want to talk about energy usage of Bitcoin, we need to compare it against its most closest competition, which is the traditional finance world. And Bitcoin mining uses about a tenth of 1% of the world's electricity, so very, very small amount. And I've heard that Bitcoin uses as much electricity as some small countries. Well, but I'm sure some of the large banks in the United States uses as much electricity as some large countries.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
let's compare apples to apples here.
Hmm.
And that's what Bitcoin is taking market share away from, which is traditional banking and traditional stores of value. So I think it's sort of miscommunication on exactly what we do and how we do our business. So it's our responsibility to try to get our word out of exactly what we're doing and how we're helping, stabilize grids and keep energy prices low and provide an opportunity for capital preservation for the long term.
Hmm. Absolutely. So we've touched a bit upon the mining aspect of Mara. I know there are lots of other things you guys do as well. How do you describe Mara and what makes it different from other companies in the space?
Yeah, so our roots are in Bitcoin mining, as you pointed out, but we're a technology full stack technology company, and we're providing software to other mining companies. We run a pool ourselves. We're the only public company running our own mining pool, and we're also building products that not only Bitcoin miners can use, but other users of data centers like hyperscalers can use heat recapture and cooling technologies. We have some very exciting immersion cooling mechanisms where we put the mining equipment or the routers right into a solution, which keeps them cool, because that's really the main fear of any kind of computer, is that it will overheat.
Mm-hmm.
So cooling technologies are very, very important, very valuable,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we're talking about, now the hot topic, the new shiny thing is artificial intelligence, which uses a lot of electricity, more than
Mm-hmm.
people I think are really counting on at this point. And their machines need to be cooled because they can't afford for those machines to be down ever. They need to be 5 nines all the time. So we're
Mm-hmm.
building cooling technologies. We're using heat we're repurposing heat in certain countries like Finland. We're heating 18,000 homes with the heat offtake from Bitcoin mining machines.
Wow.
So in a country like Finland, a lot of the apartment buildings and communities are heated by geothermal, because they sit on a lot of geothermal pools. And what we're able to do is we're able to put Bitcoin mining machines in between the thermal power that's creating the electricity and the homes that need to be heated, which brings down the cost of heating those homes because they're creating Bitcoin while they're living their lives.
Wow.
So we're trying to be as creative as we can,
Mm-hmm.
and we're capturing some flare gas in some rural communities in the United States, and repurposing that flare gas, as we know, is 80 times more toxic and harmful to the environment than regular methane, and we're harnessing some of that flare gas to power generators to make Bitcoin.
Wow. It sounds like you guys have been very creative. That's amazing. 18,000 homes heated.
Mhm.
And it's interesting the point you made about AI to provide cooling systems to make sure that all the AI machines can run. Do you see that as a big area of opportunity? Because it seems like AI has just exploded. It can be used pretty much, across most industries. Like everyone's using AI, and it's only probably going to become a bigger part of everyday life. You see that as being a big area for you guys?
Uh, as far as artificial intelligence goes, I don't see us operating data centers to house AI type routers. That's not really what our business is. We think that the value in AI will be in the inference, not in the generation of those data centers. So,
Hmm.
like when I say that, I mean, if you drive a Tesla, there's artificial intelligence built into it, but only once a day does it reach back into the pool of servers to get software updates. So the
Okay.
AI is talking to itself inside the car to make the car do the things that you want it to do. So that's the
Okay.
inference piece. So we think
Right.
that's really where the AI value drivers are going to be.
Hmm.
And I think the hyperscalers that are providing the backbone to that technology are, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, underestimating how difficult it's going to be up so much, 5 nines all the time, and to be able to generate all of that electricity. I think there's going to be a lot of demand for electricity, traditional electricity through the grid.
Okay. And when you say 5 nines all the time, what are you referring to?
That means 0.99999 times it's up and running. So
Okay.
99.9999% of the time, that's five
Wow.
nines. Yeah. So you
Okay.
can't. So 100% up. It's just a little bit less than 100% up and running.
All right. Very, very high standard.
Yes, exactly.
Good to know. That's interesting. So, as you mentioned, Mara now holds around 46,000 Bitcoin. And as well as mining, you're also buying Bitcoin. Can you talk to us a bit about the strategy behind that?
Yeah, so what we've done, last year we issued three convertible bonds, um, and we used most of the proceeds to buy Bitcoin in the open market. And we feel that we're borrowing money close to 0% interest rates, and we're buying an asset which has been the best performing asset over the past 15 years annually. So we think that that's a good usage of shareholder money. We think it's the leverage that we want to see in our business model. So I think we don't have any plans, as far as I know right now, to do another convertible bond issuance, but we're seeing more and more companies use this strategy. MicroStrategy is who's changed their name to Strategy, it was the leader in this field where they're issuing convertible bonds. They issue convertible preferred stock, and they're using it to buy Bitcoin. We're starting to see some other companies, Semler Scientific, even GameStop has talked about using some of their excess cash to buy Bitcoin. And it makes sense for corporations because if they have to have a certain amount of cash on hand for business, uh, Bitcoin is as liquid as cash is, but it is not inflationary. So as we see,
Mm-hmm.
I think somewhere between 6 and 7% of money supply increases every year. So you're losing 7% on your treasury of cash every year, even if everything just stays the same. So that's a return on
Mm-hmm.
investment to corporations too, to hold your money in Bitcoin, even though it's volatile. Over time, you're going to outperform the decay that you see in traditional cash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It makes a very compelling argument when you put it that way. So we've talked about Mara having a presence in places like Finland. You operate internationally around the world. Are there any challenges that people might not realize, that comes with operating at such a scale internationally?
For sure. So depending, each geography is different. So we have a joint partnership in the Middle East where we're doing Bitcoin mining in Abu Dhabi. And it's very challenging there. As you can imagine, it gets to be 150 degrees
Wow.
Fahrenheit in the summer and with
Yes.
95% humidity, and it's hard to keep machines up and running during those times. So there's challenges there, but our cooling technology has worked from day one. So that region has been very impressed with our technology stack. Finland is a cold place. We have the wind farms that we just bought in Ohio and Oklahoma. Each place is unique. There's local constituents that we need to deal with, and we want to make sure that we're a good neighbor and a good partner in the local communities. So we do the best we can with community outreach. And that's how we want to grow our business. We want to grow our business as a partner to whomever that we're locating in, and try to help them solve the problems that they are facing, whether it's you know asset protection or energy growth.
Hmm. Have you been in any of the data centers before? Can you tell us what they're like?
They are large. They're sort of, imagine multiple football fields with shipping containers stationed a certain distance from each other, and
Wow.
the shipping containers are full of Bitcoin mining computers. I think we have about 300,000 mining computers, which look like the computer that you have under your desk, but they're built to do one thing, and that is to solve the algorithm that allows us to print the ledger on the Bitcoin blockchain and to earn Bitcoin rewards from it.
Wow. That big, like football fields were. Oh
Oh,
my gosh.
yes, yes.
Was there anything unexpected that you found when like are they super loud?
There are noise ordinances that we need to operate in. So keeping
Okay.
keeping the noise down is a very important piece of operating this type of a business. So no, they're surprisingly clean to me. I mean, because some of these places are somewhat dusty, to put
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
And you don't want that getting inside the machine, so you need to do preventative measures to make sure dust and dirt don't get inside the machines and clog them up.
Yeah.
And they were remarkably clean and sparkly.
Nice.
Right.
And what kind of, in terms of the people that are behind these, does it take like a big team of people? Is it quite minimal and the machines are just doing their thing? It sounds like you've got a great cleaning team going
Yeah, so
on.
we've most of the growth in our employee base has come from the operations of our wholly owned data centers. So about when I joined the company, we were 100% um, third party operated. So we only owned the machines and we hired somebody else to plug them in and run them. And
Okay.
now we're buying our own data centers.
Okay.
So we're having to staff those, and they're with very highly competent engineer type people who understand the technology, understand the challenges and the risks, and but it's a unique person who has the skill set to be able to walk into a room with thousands of machines and find the one that has a problem, pull it out, fix it, and get it back running quickly.
Wow. That doesn't sound like a small feat at all. Do you have a particular project or a moment with Mara so far that stands out as like a highlight or a favorite moment?
I would say the highlight for me was the fourth quarter of last year where we bought about 7,000 Bitcoin in the market over two month uh, a 2 month span. We're very active.
Wow.
Trading is, something that I've done my whole career and I really
Yeah.
enjoy. And I would say, we did it with very little slippage. We outperformed the overall market during that time, so we generated some alpha as well as being able to take down a large amount of assets. So to me, that was the funnest thing that I have done so far
Nice.
since I've
Yeah,
been
I
at Mara.
bet.
Yeah.
Sounds like very exciting time. Great way to close
Mhm.
out the year. You guys must have had a good Christmas party. Um, what's something about Mara you think that would surprise people?
Uh, it's remarkably smoothly run. There are so many different initiatives, and there's so many really bright people who come to this business from different backgrounds and with different reasons for joining this type of a business. And the amount of conflict is so small that it's pretty amazing. And that comes from the top, comes from the attitude that senior management brings and the respect that they have for the people who they bring into the company. And they really trust us to know what we're doing and to operate and in shareholders' best interest. So it's a very, very hospitable place to work, I have to say, especially coming from Wall Street, which is the
Oh my God.
exact opposite.
Oh gosh. Yeah, and that's so important. I think a lot of companies might not focus so much on that, or yes, you want to be profitable and do well, but at the end of the day, you want to have a nice environment, right, where people show up and actually enjoy work and not have to deal with office politics. So it's always nice and refreshing to hear about companies that have managed to cultivate a positive a culture like that. So
Right. Yeah.
that's really great to hear. And then you mentioned we touched upon Bitcoin being the best performing asset and it being a good investment. What other utility do you see Bitcoin having in the wider
Yeah.
crypto ecosystem?
For sure. So we have an initiative that I was part of called Enduro, which is building an RWA platform, so a real world asset platform that would sit on the Bitcoin blockchain. So Ethereum, as you know, is sort of the virtual machine where all the smart contracts reside. Most people build on Solana or Ethereum. And those networks are good at what they do, but they're not as secure as the Bitcoin network is. So we have an initiative where we're building out some real world assets that could be tokenized and transacted on the Bitcoin blockchain, which will bring more activity to the blockchain, which is a good
Hmm.
thing for us because we earn fees for blocks that are printed, and it allows us to sort of get our feet in the Web3 world without being a full DeFi developing
Hmm.
group.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, it seems there's like a lot of growth and opportunity in the real world asset
Yeah,
tokenization space right now. So
right.
that sounds really interesting. Is there anything else you're particularly excited about in terms of what Mara is offering or working on at the moment?
I mean, that I can speak to that. I think, just continuing to accumulate Bitcoin where we can at good levels, making our mining operation more and more secure and efficient. And then also, being able to go into places, like Africa, like the Middle East, where there's a need for great customers that can be flexible. And we can help, lower the overall cost of electricity and the cost of living in places where we deploy. And I think that to me is really exciting.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And do you have any big goals you're working towards, like over the next year or two?
Our 2-year goal is to have 50% of our revenues from outside the United States. And that's not because we don't see opportunity in the United States. It's just because we want to diversify and we see some very, very exciting opportunities overseas. So
Hmm.
that's one thing. And then it's going to be interesting to see how we compete with, the hyperscalers who are going to be housing the AI growth. It's
Hmm.
going to see how we fit in, work with them. I think a lot of the AI hyperscalers can benefit from our technology, from our cooling systems, from our software, firmware. And I think, there's a lot of really exciting initiatives going on inside the company right now.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely sounds like it. Is there a question or a topic you wish people would ask more often about this space or about Mara?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, it depends. The questions that we get when I speak at a conference or, when we do chats like this it's really interesting because a lot of it is driven by the experience of the person asking the questions. If it's a Wall
Okay.
Street person, they're asking questions about implied volatility of Bitcoin. If it's an energy person, they're asking questions about, how do you capture methane and put it through a generator and make Bitcoin with it? So it's fun in that we're looked at by a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, and to me that means that we're touching a lot of things that have opportunity for our shareholders.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's always nice talking about the space with people coming from different worlds. I think after the rally of last year, I've never had so many conversations with different like friends who've never really spoken to me about crypto before, and suddenly, they're all asking about it, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's nice. And then from completely different walks of life too, because I think, like you said, it's touching a lot of different parts of life. There's energy, like you said, there's solving this issue of people who are debanked. There's financial inclusion. There's so many aspects to this. So it's nice seeing how it's making an impact in these different areas. Is there anything else that we have not covered that you would like to talk about or think would
I
be
don't think so,
interesting?
Lindsay. I think you covered pretty much everything that I do and the things that we think about. So I think we covered everything.
Amazing. Well, this has been so interesting. I've learned a lot about energy and how things work, in that sector. And I think it's absolutely fantastic that Bitcoin and mining and Mara is actually providing a great solution in order to really propel renewable energy and is helping provide tools and tech products to other miners in the space to encourage more people to mine Bitcoin. Thank you for joining us. It's been a really fascinating conversation. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay. It was a lot of fun.
Wonderful. So if someone wants to find out more about you or Mara, I'll drop details in the show notes, but what's
Hmm.
the best place for them to?
Go to mara.com/learn, and you can find all kinds of interviews and presentations and things that we have written and done to try to get the word out about who we are and what we do.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, Paul. That's it for today's episode of Token for Your Thoughts. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned for more interviews with the people shaping crypto and Web3. We'll see you on the next episode.